Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to MediaX and Stanford for having us here. I do want to apologize on Hossein Ranama's behalf, who's our founder and CEO of Flybits. He wishes that he could make it today, but he had some travel conflicts, so I will do my best to fill his shoes today and tell you a little bit about how and why our company came to fruition, and also share some of the challenges that we see in the market today, and look to the future and share our view of the opportunities that lie ahead when we talk about how to build a high-impact customer experience that's driven through data. Now, it's quite appropriate that we're here at Stanford today because our company is rooted in academia. Our company started when our founder and CEO, Hossein, began his research in context-aware computing for his PhD thesis. Is anyone in the audience familiar with context awareness, pervasive computing, also called ubiquitous computing? Okay, so there's a couple people in the audience. It's essentially this idea of how do you adapt and respond to the needs of today's connected consumer and deliver the right or the relevant information to them based on their own unique and often dynamic situation. Now, why does this matter today? Customer expectations have evolved. This statement is nothing groundbreaking, but I want to explore this a little bit for a moment. If we think about over the past 2 decades how we've been engaging with digital technology, if we look at the desktop computing paradigm, for example, this was a prime design for us to manually search for information. The screen size is quite large. The keyboard is ergonomically designed and optimized for typing and searching. But if we look at today, most of our interactions happen on mobile devices. And our technology has increasingly gotten smaller and smaller, although I know this one's up for debate. Just yesterday, I had airport security poking fun at me for the sheer size of my iPhone compared to the size of my hands. But compared to desktop computers, our phones have gotten much, much smaller, and the data that we're generating is so vast, and the velocity at which we generate data has increased as well. There was someone in the audience this morning that had mentioned that our culture is based on this idea of rituals. And if we think about mobile interactions, this is also quite true. For example, if you wake up in the morning, you check your transit schedule to see if your transit is on time. You find out it's delayed, so you might go ahead and request an Uber. And then while you're in the Uber, maybe you want to pull out your phone during an opportune moment of silence in between small talk with your Uber driver to order your cup of coffee for the morning. These are very micro interactions, and if you notice, they're quite three-dimensional and nonlinear. They transition to and from online and offline. But if we take a look at how and why we interact with our mobile technology, the way in which we interact with mobile technology has not quite changed from this desktop computing paradigm. So it's very contradictory in the sense that our mobile devices require us to manually search for a lot of this information. We have to pull out our devices, type for the information that we're looking for, and then that information will be delivered to us. And we also don't know what we don't know, so it's a missed opportunity. So instead, what if our technology, or if we could leverage technology in the same way that we have our human experiences that are very three-dimensional, transitioning between online and offline, and leverage all the data that we generate to instead deliver this information to us at the right moment in time. Now, this is the next step in what we see of customer experience, because since the way that we engage with our devices has largely remained the same in the sense that, let's say, the Fortune 500s are delivering online or offline experiences to us on our mobile devices, and this doesn't quite match the paradigm in which we engage with our mobile technology. So if we can leverage data or look at data in a new way to instead deliver information to the consumer at the right point in time or in a moment of need, this changes the way that we can start to engage with mobile technology and beyond. So not just based on screens, where we are in our current mobile paradigm, but also looking towards more interactive and dynamic forms of technology as well. We work with a lot of enterprises that have ideas on how they can start to personalize or make customer experiences much more relevant and engaging, but they struggle when it comes to bringing them to market for the reasons that I'm about to explain. If we look at the evolution of the customer landscape, and we could argue that by and large, some companies are still in this mass state of customer engagement where, let's say you and I can download a mobile application and see the exact same information, despite the fact that we are different people. We have different interests, different needs, different situations that might impact our online or offline experience. We're starting to hear a lot, especially over the past couple years, about this notion of a personalized digital experience. But when we really look deep at this, we notice that the experience is still quite two-dimensional. Maybe it's leveraging location data, possibly cookies or your browser level history to adapt the experience, but it doesn't consider the holistic view of what we call our context. So when we talk about high impact personalization, we're looking at the situational context of the user. This could be, what language do they speak? What is the time of day or the time of year? What are they doing physically or online? If we can start to aggregate and unify all of these different data sources, we can create a much more holistic sense of, or paint a much more holistic sense of our customer and understand them in new ways. Now, we talked to the enterprises, especially in financial institutions and travel and hospitality, and they understand this. They're eager to create these very personalized and dynamic experiences, but the challenge that they face is that it can become quite expensive and complex to bring these use cases to market when it comes to aggregating all of these different data sources, because they all are stored in data silos and they come with different data structures. So what we do is we abstract the complexity of data unification so that instead of worrying about building out the infrastructure to support these use cases, now our customers can focus on innovation and really think about what type of value do they want to bring to their customer experiences. The same is also true when we talk about data aggregation. The same is also true when it comes to artificial intelligence. There seems to be this common misconception that AI is a one-size-fits-all solution, and we heard this earlier this morning, where as long as you adopt AI and you're implementing it into your organization, then you're on the right path. But this is not necessarily true, because AI too requires an understanding of the user's context. For example, if we look at financial institutions again, if I want to deliver a next best offer or a product recommendation, that's quite different than wanting to understand a risk assessment for fraud or eligibility for a loan. Maybe I don't want to serve up content to the user, and that's quite different from that initial example of serving up the next best offer. So it all comes down to really understanding the problem that we're trying to solve and who we're trying to solve this problem for, so that we can adopt the right technology and the right solution that we can use to create a customer experience. And this is really our goal, is to simplify how you can unify data from disparate sources, but also the same is true for machine learning and artificial intelligence. We might want to leverage different types of machine learning, because there are so many various types that, depending on the context and the situation in which you want to engage with an end user, will vary. So we allow our customers to now create these data ecosystems or mashups where they can leverage different types of data, leverage different data models without having to worry about the IT complexity that's so often involved in this type of engagement. And ultimately, the goal is that we want to help our enterprise customers build much more impactful narratives for their customers based on each customer's unique situation, identity, and needs. And when we have the right data, it provides us with the right ingredients to be able to bring this to market. Now, before I get into a demonstration to add a little bit of color as to how we make this happen, I'll spend a couple minutes here talking about what is a high-impact customer experience. And again, this might seem like table stakes, but it's very surprising how often this seems to be overlooked. And this is a key ingredient for making sure that the value that we bring to customers resonates on these three pillars, which are, A, are we solving a business problem? We've seen a few examples, and again, I'm bringing financial institutions as an example here, with retail banking, where perhaps customers have been served products that don't necessarily fulfill their financial wellness or well-being, and possibly put them in a worse state of financial wellness. And this is because these industries have primarily or historically been focused on a very product-centric model, which doesn't consider the user. So if we put the user at the center of the experience, now we can figure out what type of customer, consumer problem or need are we trying to address? Who is the consumer? How can we better serve them? Now, these top two pillars are a must-have, but when we focus on these top two pillars alone, we're only looking at customer satisfaction. When we want to build customer connection, that's where this bottom tier comes in here, which is consumer delight. This allows us to build an emotional connection, whether that's feeling understood, feeling included, or feeling surprised and delighted. And using data, we can start to aggregate and unify a better view of our customers so we can achieve this trifecta right here. Now, what I'll do next is I'll move to a demonstration, and this will give you a sense of how we make this possible for our customers. so they no longer have to worry about IT complexity. On my screen here, you're looking at what we call the Experience Studio. This is a visual interface that allows our customers to now create an end-to-end customer experience without having to worry about hard coding and the IT complexities that I mentioned earlier. Once our customers install our SDKs, which is our software development kits, into their digital channels, and this could be screen-based interfaces such as a mobile application or a native application, or it could be something like Amazon Alexa, for example. But this allows now a non-technical person to own the customer experience. And what we'll do next is start to look at how we can really understand each unique user's needs and how can we surprise and delight the consumer as well, just by understanding their context. Now, I'll start off here by creating what we call a rule, and this is the ability now to unify any source of data without having to do this through programming. So here on my screen, you'll see something that we call plugins. These are data sources. We provide a few of them to our customers to get started right away to leverage any public sources of data or device-level data that can be leveraged, such as activity level, if the user happens to be walking, driving, running, through sensors that are already available on our mobile devices. It could be something like battery level. Do we want to educate the user and send them a video? Or if they don't have sufficient battery level, maybe we can find a different way to educate and engage with the customer. So we provide several out of the box, and I'll show you here an example of how we can start to create a framework for customer engagement. In this case, let's say we want to educate a customer who's buying their first home, and we want to ensure that we can improve their financial wellness and educate them along the way. This is, of course, a very historically a product-centric model to sell a mortgage, but let's see how we can start to embed education into the process to improve the customer's financial wellness as well. So if we want to engage them with a video, we'll say that their battery level should be at least or greater than 20%. And now I can combine this with any proprietary data that I may have as a bank, for example. And this is the real value that we provide to our customers, is the ability to now combine any third-party data sources with the proprietary data that they have, so they no longer have a fragmented view of their customer, but now they can generate a 360 view. So I might say that I want to target a customer based off of, since this is for a first-time home buying experience, make sure that they have a sufficient credit score, for example. So I can leverage credit data here. And I can also leverage any predefined semantics that I've created. So if this is someone who's eligible for a first-time home buyer experience, then I can leverage these semantics as well. And now you can see I can start to mix and match all of these data sources. And in addition to the data sources, we can start to bring in data models as well. So we have propensity scoring here. There could be risk assessment. So now you can really start to combine or build this data ecosystem without having to worry about the technological complexity. So I'll go ahead and just save this. And when I do, I can also understand the impact of my audience. If I'm targeting a smaller audience here, I want to understand how many users will potentially receive this, then I can start to visualize this data as well. Now, the final piece here is to combine this with any digital touch point that I wish to engage the consumer with. This could be videos, as I mentioned, if we want to create some educational touch points along the way, or it could be information or alerts to remind the customer, whether it's, again, on mobile, on web, or through other means as well, such as Amazon Alexa. So when I create an experience, I'm combining this business logic or the context of the user with the digital touch points in which I would like to engage them with. So in this example, I might say this is my first-time home buyer experience. And we'll use that rule that we built together earlier, and maybe I want to curate range of digital touch points for the user so that we can provide them with more of an advisory service as opposed to just pushing products and services to them. We want to inform them of information that they may want to know if they're considering to buy their first home, and any of hidden costs that they may not be aware of, so that this way we can make sure that the customer is provided with the value that they need, while in addition providing the business value by servicing the mortgage as well. So here I can combine the various touch points. And when I create the experience, anyone who is eligible to receive this touch point will then receive it dynamically on the fly on their mobile device. So what I have here on my screen is an example of a sample application. We have two personas, one being a first-time home buyer, and the second one being a retiree who happens to be purchasing their second home. You can see that this is the exact same mobile application, but now the users are being served different content. They can be spoken to in a different way based on who they are and what their needs are. So for example, the first-time home buyer is being educated of all of the information that they want to know leading up until their first appointment to qualify for their mortgage. Whereas the second user they've been through the experience of purchasing a home before, so we may want to communicate with them differently and just add convenience into their experience. Now we can start to look at customer experience quite differently, especially when we have typically seen these very product-centric approaches online or offline. Now we can embed more education into the experience and ensure that we're providing the customer value that's needed, in addition to ensuring that the business goals are met as well. And this is really where we see customer experience starting to advance. When we can start to use data in a much more effective way, we can start to make our designs or our experiences much more empathetic by design as well. And this is so key to a few of the concepts that came up this morning around making sure that AI is very human-centric and is seen as one that's inclusive. And we can achieve this by leveraging data in this way to ensure that customers are being delivered the right information in the right way and through the right modality as well. I'll pause here and see if there are any questions.